Let's bring in our guest today. This guy organized the
Force the vote.
I was going to say the Rock the Vote, the hashtag Force the Vote rally on DC, out in front of the offices of these people, these legislators, to say and demand that the squad and all the progressives who don't talk about censorship force Nancy Pelosi to put Medicare for All on the vote for a floor. You know him by name. He's not the Jackson 5. He's Jackson Hinkle. What's up, my man? How you doing?
How's it going? How are you guys doing?
Well, we're fired up because we we got demonetized. So
I heard. I'm so. I'm very sorry to hear that, but not surprised.
Yeah. I think it's coming for all of us, to be honest.
It's coming for you too, brother.
Unfortunately, I hope it doesn't, but I honestly, they've targeted way too many people we know now. So it's, people were asking me like yesterday, are you still monetized? And I was like, yeah. And then today it's like, oh no, I'm not. Okay, there you go. So they're having this war, right? They're waging this war against people who tell the truth, because we're taking their audience away from mainstream media, and they can't have that, and they can't have people thinking for themselves. So, Jackson, since you're here, and we saw you in DC, we saw you at Assange protests, the Force the Vote. There's a divide right now, right? There's a divide on the left, and people are dismissing still a Force the Vote as a terrible strategy. Yeah. But Americans right now, we still don't have healthcare. We still don't have a stimulus. We still don't have anything. So how are you navigating these waters right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty wild that there's people who are still out there today who are like, no, we shouldn't be fighting for Medicare for All in the middle of a pandemic. We shouldn't be pressuring Biden when he's literally doing nothing good and everything wrong. And people are suffering. People, even in, very affluent Orange County, California, where I'm broadcasting from today, are suffering. People are not able, as many people probably know firsthand, even in the audience, people are struggling to put food on their plates, keep a roof over their heads, keep electricity going in their house or their apartments. It's wild, but we got to keep doing what you are all doing at the Convo Couch and continuing the pressure, even in the face of all these obstacles that we're up against, like demonetization, like the shadow banning, like the just banning of content. We need to continue fighting people like Biden, the boutique left, Silicon Valley billionaires, and just continue with our messaging, because we will continue to win more and more people over if we do that. And I regardless of what you think of him, of his politics, he's a bit more center than I think than we all are. But Kyle Kalinske, he always gives the same advice to people who ever want to start a news show or get their voice out there, start doing advocacy. And that's just keep talking, keep pressuring, keep making your voice heard. And if you do that long enough, people aren't going to be able to shut you out, because your voice will resonate with people.
Well, that's going to be put to the test right now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. As we're talking, they're trying to shutting us down. And I really think, we've been having what we call the young, new, hot voices out there right now. That's why we had to get you on. We did Steve Poikonen, Frank Bruno, but it seems like they go after people and they kind of shut them down as they're getting momentum. On another note, though, I want to stick on this Force to Vote, because this is important, too. We talk about freedom of speech. We talk about foreign policy. Healthcare is very important to some of us. You know what I'm saying? What do you think is next for the Force to Vote movement? And if that doesn't work, what is the best way to get healthcare right now in this type of climate?
Yeah, so it's really funny, because in probably late February, this month, in the House and in the Senate, all those progressives who we were cheering on to force the vote, we were there to support them in doing that if they had chosen to do that. They're going to be introducing Medicare for All legislation in the House and a mirrored piece of legislation in the Senate. So when that time comes, you'd think that the appropriate thing to do would be to force a vote on the policy, not just to introduce it and then sit on your asses and do nothing for the next 2 years of this session of Congress, right? But that's what they'll probably try to do. But we need to be there to, again, try to leverage this moment and encourage them to do what you should be doing if you actually believe in a policy, and secure a House floor vote on this. And we have control of the House. We have I say we, but I'm not even a Democrat. Democrats have control of the House. Democrats have control of the Senate. This is their policy. They need to actually act on this. And it shouldn't take all of us pressuring them to do that. I think everyone knows that, but unfortunately that's the case. So we're going to be continuing that pressure. And I know you'll be there with all of us in doing that, because you were there in DC, and continuing to pressure these politicians like the Fraud Squad, like members of the CPC, Congressional Progressive Caucus, to actually take a vote on the policy in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, what perfect time? I mean, what better time than now? And like, they're talking about shutting down again, like because our numbers are still high, and not just California, but all over the United States. Angela Merkel actually made an announcement saying that they might shut down again, and people are like encouraging that. Wherever you stand on that debate, right? People need money. People don't have anything, and you can't even go to the doctor. And so I think these are issues that we need to, a lot of these people who on the boutique left who sit there and they talk about, well, you need to organize it. No, there is organizing going on. There should be a momentum of push for direct action right now, because it's not enough right now, like you said, to wait on them to sit on their ass and then push papers. We need to put physical pressure on these people, make them physically uncomfortable through direct action protest in order to get this to happen, right?
Yeah, I laugh when you say that, because like we applied probably the most bare minimum pressure that we could apply while still being supportive during the Force the Vote protest, right? We had a group of a few dozen people out in DC who were like, hey, maybe you guys should take a vote on this policy, considering 186 people are dying every day in this country due to a lack of access to basic health insurance, probably more, because again, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And even that, AOC was like, that's violence. Can't do that. Sorry, that's violence. Can't pressure me to make positive change in this world. I just find the whole thing to be absolutely ironic and so disingenuous these people are in their responses to what we're trying to do. And it makes everything really difficult, because then you have these boutique left fraud squad like supporters in independent left media who are cheering them on and who are going along with this messaging of like, yeah, no, we shouldn't be fighting for Medicare for all in a pandemic. But it's time to turn up the heat. People are dying every day, and they shouldn't expect us to be that nice moving forward, because this is a crisis, and we're living through multiple crises, also economic crisis, health crisis, and if we don't turn up the heat, then they're just going to keep giving us the same responses.
Yeah.
And he's not turning down the heat over here, fam. I got to tell you this much: we went out to DC, and I was very curious. Like, all right, we're gonna meet Jackson Hinkle. What's going on? And when you were talking on the steps and Jackson was giving the police the fingers and like, get out of my face, and Johnny was running around with the camera getting in the cops' faces, I was shitting my pants over here.
No, Jackson's a badass.
Jackson was like, I was like, badass. Oh my God, he's really about this stuff. And I'm like,
straight talking to the police. No,
right?
No problem. And
I'm like, Jackson, let's get to the park. My chicken ass. I'm like, let's get to the park over here. And Fiorella was screaming with the bullhorn. And there was more cops surrounding us than there were that were on the Capitol building the next couple days later. It was like ridiculous. And literally, there were more cops, I thought, then. And you know what I'm saying? It was for real, but there was definitely a divide. I think there was a line drawn in the sand. And I know they're calling us now the Dore left, right? The ones who kind of agree with the force to vote.
Doorknobs.
The doorknobs, right? We're all doorknobs, right? Because, he came up with this plan. You came up with the protest, and we're all for it. We've been saying shit for this like a long time. We've been saying with all these stand-up bills for rent forgiveness, why aren't the squad looking at Pelosi and saying, put it up on the floor? This is rent and mortgage forgiveness. It's a standalone bill, 2 pages. They'll never do it. So this was just shining the flashlight on there. But obviously, in lieu of what's going on with AOC now talking about her trauma and all this other stuff, and do you think that we're being too hard on AOC right now? I mean, because we don't have health care. People are getting evicted. We see what the media is going on, and as AOC is just pointing the finger at the Republicans and saying it's them.
Right.
What do you think your thoughts are on that? Are we being too rough right now? Should we be a little bit more softballish and sensitive and nice and put more flower emojis on our Twitter? What? I mean,
here's the thing. I think that AOC could potentially have been very frightened and been experiencing real trauma in that moment. There's some interesting stuff coming out now surrounding where she actually was during the during the break-in of the Capitol, and I'm actually not sure which building she was in. I don't know where Katie Porter's office was, but that's going to be interesting to look into, and maybe you have more information on that than I do. I just haven't looked at it yet. I've had a hectic morning, but I know that's been bubbling on Twitter this morning. But the thing is, you can't just be focused on your own personal issues when you are a member of Congress and there's a pandemic going on. People don't have health care. There's people are struggling to stay in their homes, and crazy amount of people are falling into unhoused situations. So it's like your job, first and foremost, you took an oath to serve the people, to represent your constituents and Americans as a whole. So if you're not doing your job of fighting for Americans and you're not living up to your campaign promises, then you deserve criticism. Okay. And there's this whole thing going on right now about AOC, this whole controversy with her feeling this trauma, and that's real trauma. And some people are using that as a shield almost to protect AOC from any criticism, legitimate criticism, surrounding her lack of fight for Medicare for all, or her really subtle criticisms of Joe Biden not giving us $2,000 stimulus checks. Like, no, that you can't use that to shield her where she's doing poorly in her own job, right? So I think if people want to make her or stand in solidarity with her surrounding what took place at the Capitol, fine, go for it. If her story lines up with the truth and what actually happened, then I stand in solidarity with her too. I think that's terrible. The fact that the cop told her to go down the baseline or to the first floor in the Capitol complex, and like she didn't know where she was going, and it was this crisis moment. Clearly, there's a lot of things going wrong there, right? But the fact of the matter is you can't use that to shield her from real criticism surrounding her failures as a member of Congress. And if her trauma from this event is getting in the way of her advocating for these policies, then maybe I'm not saying she should do this, but like maybe she should consider taking a leave of absence if you really feel like you can't do your job.
That's what I was going to say. She consider quitting if you can't take the heat. Quit. I'm sorry. When did they become the protected class?
Absence. Like, yeah, that's the thing. Like,
what is this?
I agree with your assessment. I completely agree. I mean, especially as a woman, I think women have to be more vocal in this circumstance, because a lot of the times, you guys can't really, you can't, you'll say one thing and then they'll turn around and say you're being sexist. And for me, it's like, I stand with her on terms of the trauma that she may have had from sexual assault. I totally understand that. I'm not questioning that aspect. What I am questioning is why it's being used and manipulated and politicized to now distract from what many people are feeling. People can't go to therapy right now. There's plenty of Americans who are depressed and are really mentally unstable right now, and they don't have the money to go to a doctor or a psychologist or a therapist. And like, it seems like we have elevated politicians in America to a level of just putting them on a pedestal and this stand where, like, oh my God, we have to. I saw somebody on Twitter say, well, now we need to make sure that we get mental help for all of our staffers. It's like, wait a minute, we don't even have fucking health care for people who go to the hospital. We can't. People are dying. Wait a minute now. Like, why? Like, that's my issue right now. And I think right now too, Jackson, there's a divide largely on the left between those of us who want class solidarity and who are focused on uniting people, who are focused on, like, if you're for healthcare for all, come join us. If you're for Julian Assange, come join us, versus people who want to only talk to people they agree with. What is your take on this, and where do you stand as the best way of moving forward in this precarious time in terms of like working class struggle?
We got to stay focused on the issues. And I forget, I think it was a YouTuber by the name Unapologetic. Do you remember their name?
He's Unapologetic on YouTube. I think that's his Twitter name, and that's his YouTube name.
Yes. So they pointed out something really interesting, and I was like, duh, when I saw it. But I think it was maybe in response or to one of your tweets, or maybe you retweeted them. But they said, like, working class people have to go through these sorts of struggles every day. You think a worker at a gas station has never been robbed at gunpoint? You think a bank teller has never been put in a situation where they thought their life was going to be at risk? Obviously, there's a disparity in the wages and salaries of those two workers, but the fact of the matter is, like, working class people have to go through these sorts of things on a daily basis and be expected to perform at the same level, at the high level of their job the next day, right? They don't have the time to have, therapists come into their work and console them and help them, get through this crisis or this emotional trauma. And that shouldn't be like that. I'm not saying that we should have those same shitty standards for like politicians. I'm saying we should have the politicians or the standards we have for politicians and staffers for working class people, right? Yeah. So I think if we continue staying focused on the issues, the overwhelming majority of Americans agree on progressive policies, leftist issues. I think that that's going to be a big plus for us. And really just let's not let the circus of Washington, D.C. get in the way of what we're trying to accomplish. And also, let's just point out that what politicians have access to right now, government-sponsored healthcare, they get all this assistance when they go through a traumatic event on the job. Like, all of these things should be guaranteed to working class people. And unfortunately, we just don't have that right now. But I think those are good things that we should keep in mind moving forward.
Well, I would kind of sprinkle a little bit more stuff on that there, where we have to keep talking about the issues, but I think we have to also eat the rich, or maybe eat the elites. Maybe we got to eat the elites. We should let's eat the elites and stuff. But and all those things you were saying were so true too as well. You talk about the working class people who can't get therapy. What about the 750,000 homeless people now we've grown to in America? Aren't they traumatized? Aren't they scared? What about the 80% of Americans who work paycheck to paycheck and through this pandemic have gotten no rent relief? Don't know what they're going to do. Aren't they scared? Aren't they traumatized? All those, when we were doing the Force to Vote, and after Spee's powerful speech, I did my cheerleading thing, but one of the things that really made me get warm and like just really upset me inside is the fact that parents out there have to decide how much and when and how much insulin they can afford for their kids every day. And I'm thinking about a mother or a father having to go through that in their mind. You talk about trauma, and I don't want to downplay anything that happened, but if I was a civil servant, I'd be putting my life on the line for those people out there. I wouldn't be making about me and my safety and my feelings. No, I'm there to work for the masses. I'm there to correct the problems for everybody who's poor and suffering and dying in this country, and for all the people that we allow to be bombed on a regular basis. Yeah, that's who we should be standing up for. Not, oh my God, I mean, I don't want to downplay shit, but also let's tie this into not just the fraud squad, all those people and stuff, and those Democrats that we have, the progressives that we have in the Democratic Party. Are you done supporting them, or should we just go our separate ways right now? Are you going to continue to support them, I should say?
I will always give credit where credit is due. If there is a far-right member of Congress who does something good, I'm giving them credit. I'm going to applaud them. I'm going to support them in whatever effort they do. And when we were in D.C. together and we were outside, was it the Department of Justice during the Julian Assange decision, we had a bunch of great speakers out there. And I wanted to highlight when I was speaking the fact that, hey, we've had a few select group of Congress members who've actually come out in support of Julian Assange. Tulsi Gabbard, Thomas Massey, I think Matt Gaetz also. There may be a few more, but it's like some of those people I don't agree with on most every issue, with the exception of like civil liberties, maybe anti-war policy, things of that matter. There's probably a few more I'm forgetting off the top of my head.
I think you said Rand Paul too. I think you said Paul, because I remember that speech, and I was like, look at Jackson Hinkle. He's not afraid to throw out a couple Republicans here in front of people. I'm liking this guy.
But that's what we need to do, because if we actually hope to address the systemic crises that we have that are affecting working class people today in this country, we need to be able to unite right and left and fight for those issues, because the majority of people agree on the solutions to those issues, and the majority of people in this country are actually, being impacted by these issues. So, Fee, that's why I liked when you tweeted out that thing surrounding like we're closer than ever before at uniting people all across this country of all creeds, backgrounds, political affiliations in a class war. I totally agree with you on that, but it's like also the class war has been being waged by the top 1/10 of 1% for years now. We're just for the first time going to be fighting back. So, I guess like uniting people and kind of cutting through this BS of like political labels and political affiliations and just staying focused on actually addressing these issues is the best way to move forward. And if progressive politicians want to help us in that fight, then awesome. I will support you. But the fact of the matter is like these people are terrible on most issues. And even the issues where they say they agree with us, they're not fighting with us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you can look to everyone points to the squad always as like the progressive darlings of the Democratic Party. These people are not progressive. You look at their foreign policy, you look at their like AOC's opinion on Israel and Palestine. You look at their real lack of support for the indigenous protests in Bolivia. You look at their deferring to party leadership on Venezuela. Like, all of these things are sickening, and they sound like neoliberal corporatists when they talk. But many on the left today would consider them like the progressive champions of our party, of the Democratic Party, which is absolutely baffling to me.
Yeah.
And, right now that the Democrats have caved to potentially lowering the stimulus, because they already did. They lowered it from $2,000, Joe Biden lied, we know, to $1,400. And now they're actually working with Republicans. They're going to be working with Republicans to potentially lower it to $1,000 because Republicans want it to be $1,000. So this is the third stimulus check update. And, of course, like the Senate voted ahead by one. I think it was by one vote. They got voted ahead. Yeah, 50 to 49. And the GOP wants $1,000, and the Democrats have already said, well, we're gonna work with them, right? This is why we as leftists, as progressives, as whatever you want to call yourselves, you don't start with pocket change. You demand so much more, because these people never had any intention on giving $2,000. They literally blatantly lied, and now they're gonna bring it down, and it's gonna be April before you get your 50% discounted stimulus check. I mean, if this doesn't get people to really go against the establishment, I don't know. Is it time for a strike, Jackson? Is there potential to do something like a general strike?
I always support the idea of strikes and general strikes. The question is like, how do we actually do it?
Right.
How do we get many of the union leaders, both national and local, who in some cases, not all cases, but in some cases don't actually align all the time with the needs of their workers, don't want to press up too much against those in power. How do we actually make it happen? And that's a whole nother discussion. But yes, I totally support the idea of a general strike to get what we want. In the past, this sort of stuff has proven to be extremely, successful. Tax strikes as well have proven to be extremely successful. These are the things that we should be considering. Unfortunately, so many Americans are just, beholden to this ideology that we can't get more and we can't actually fight for ourselves. Right. And I think that has a lot to do with the lack of education surrounding labor history in the United States. Like, I grew up in a pretty nice school district with good teachers, and I never once heard about the struggle of the Wobblies or whatever they're called in the IWW. It's like, I never heard about these things in my history class, my AP US class. Heard a lot about our founding fathers, but nothing about labor struggle. So it's been ingrained into each and every one of us who's, I guess, been educated in this US empire, that we can't fight for ourselves. I will say there's one caveat to that. Thanks to social media, or at least what we have left of it, we're able to see what working class people all across the world have been doing in fighting for their rights and for their needs over the past 2 years. You can look at the yellow vest, black vest movement in France. You can look at what's been happening in Bolivia, what's been happening in Chile. in Iraq, like all across the world, working class people are standing up. And I just saw this morning, I don't remember who initially I saw retweet it, but for the first time ever, Amazon workers in Alabama are looking to form a union. So this is the moment to give a phone call to Chris Smalls and start working to try and unionize and band together some of the biggest groups of laborers in the country and actually fight for what we need in this pandemic.
Yeah. It's funny, you're talking about what they never mentioned too as well, and where we are today. They really didn't mention the Black Panthers too and Fred Hampton. They talk I remember one day at the end of the period, there was one paragraph, one page in our history book, and it was these were the radicals with guns in the streets, and we had to take them out. Boom, that's it. They send their message. It's their subliminal message. It's their empire education, their conditioning, their programming, and then you move on. And then when you start researching your stuff, you say, wow, look what this group is all about. And that's the real threat, I think, Jackson. It's not even the fact that we talk about elections or censorship. It's the fact that we continually talk about working class people or poor people coming together of different ideologies, different races, different religions. That is their biggest threat. That is their biggest fear. And that's, I think, why they're putting it down. But independent media, we often face censorship. What should we do now regarding the security state and the technocratic overreach, whatnot? With us getting censors today, Franco, whatnot. I mentioned you because I think you're one of the young, hot voices out there on the left, and eventually they'll try to slow down your momentum. Hopefully they won't. But what do we do, and what are you planning for if this does happen?
I'm scared as shit. Like I get all my income pretty much from YouTube, which I know is not smart. Like I do have a Rokfin, but most of my income comes from YouTube. And I think I'm probably not alone in that. I'm sure there's a bunch of people who get either the majority or a good portion of their monthly income from YouTube as content creators. And unfortunately, like what are our choices? We don't have a lot that we can choose to do. I mean, you guys know I messaged you and a few other lefty or independent content creators probably about a month ago or a few weeks ago. And I was like, can we start a union? Can we band together in some way? Like, what do we do? And this was even before all of the crazy levels of censorship we're seeing right now was taking place. And we all knew this was going to be a huge issue. We knew it was coming. Years ago, we knew this was coming. You hear people who had independent shows back in like 2010 talking about how eventually, yes, censorship is going to be coming for the left. And now it's here. Yeah. And some of the people who have been trying to stifle this conversation about censorship for a long time are starting to wake up. I just saw you read that tweet from, I don't know if it's Jordan or Status Quo, but like, that's cool. Like again, credit where credit is due. Some people are finally coming around and realizing that this is a massive issue. And I just don't know if I have an answer for it because YouTube is such a mega corporation. They are so untouchable. It's hard to think about or devise a way in which we could collectively even leverage all of our power to fight against this rogue censorship. But I don't know who was talking about it. When I was just getting my stream set up right before I came on today, someone on the stream was talking about nationalizing YouTube. Did I hear that correctly? I mean, that sounds like a pretty cool idea.
Yeah.
But
making it a public utility.
Again, that's such an uphill battle in and of itself. Politicians today in Congress, they're all bought out by groups like YouTube and these, major mega media corporations. So I don't know if you guys have any ideas, but it seems pretty difficult to like devise a way to address this censorship, especially, and this is the last thing I'll say regarding this, but like, because they are coming at everyone at once. In the past, they've kind of gone after one person at a time, and they do it in a way where it allows all of us to band together behind that one person and be like, at Team YouTube on Twitter, what are you doing? And everyone tweets out their support for whoever's getting censored. And then usually within a few days, not all the time, but usually, the account is restored or it's remonetized or whatever. When they come for everyone at once, how are we supposed to handle that? We just can't. There's not enough people who could potentially tweet about this to make an impact. And it's kind of taking us all by storm.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. I mean, I think the idea is to formulate some sort of power between independent media, some sort of alliance where we can, band together and try to get some sort of, I don't know if unionization is it or something along those lines, to where we can have something to like help us with this now, because this is cutting into our pockets now, into our way of life. This is what we do for our living. So like, when they're targeting this, they want us to stop. They want us to stop doing this. And this is how they do it. So there's got to be a pushback, though. For too long, YouTube and Google have been abusing people. And because they're such big companies, nobody ever dares go after them. So there's got to be like a sort of coming together, just like the little people did against the hedge funds. There's got to be something like that.
But at the end, it's like the same thing. Those hedge funds, they won. They used the manipulation of the government. And, I talked about this, Jackson, on that thread. I said, well, let's get over to Rokfin. We found a place where we can do what we got to do. But I still often get scared seeing what they did with Parler, right? Okay, so Parler became the other, we don't want to stay over here on Twitter. We need to do our own thing. People kind of classified it as the conservative Twitter and stuff like that. But a lot of it had to do with the fact that their voices were being suppressed. So even leftists went over and opened up a Parler account, like I did too as well, because I was sick and tired of the censorship that's taking place. So, and when we talked about AOC and squad members, AOC championed censorship. She talked about it. She cheered it on. When she had a chance to go after Mark Zuckerberg about the whole Cambridge Analytica thing, she stopped and said, why aren't you censoring enough? And then you have Cori Bush out here saying that we should sanction or actually get rid of people, elected officials who are talking out against the elections. I mean, this is really, really scary right now. So even though I say let's get over to Rokfin, and we have a lot of people who joined us over there today, and I'm glad you're on over there, there's got to be some fear that they can even shut that down as well.
Yeah, 100%. So Jackson, can you let us know where people can find you? Let people know about your channel while it's still there, and to support you in any way possible.
Yeah, so I am still, for now, on YouTube. You can find me at The Dive with Jackson Hinkle. Kind of do a lot of the same stuff that you guys do. I just had on this week Justin Jackson and Bree Joy Gray. Very good conversations. Everyone should go check that out. Then I'm also on Rokfin, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. And yeah, I mean, you guys keep pushing, because like what's happening right now is absolutely this is a crisis moment. It's a watershed moment, and you just got to keep the pressure going. And I will be there every step of the way to support you in doing that. I think it's hilarious that you have media outlets like the New York Times who can lie us into a coup in Bolivia, or lie us into a war or wars in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yep.
Somehow they're deemed the paper of record in the country. But then people like you, truth tellers like you, and truth tellers like Graham Elwood are just censored and taken down because you're asking questions. You're not even like making claims about certain things. You're just asking questions. You're doing your job. So keep up the good work, and it's just so disappointing to see. And I'm waiting for my email. I'm just constantly checking my phone, waiting for my email for the demonetization. Yeah. I know it's coming.
Well, those two guests you had on this week right here, you're talking about Bree, you're talking about Justin Jackson. You better believe they're going to go after Bree soon. They're going to go after her because they understand where she's at on this fight, and she's been speaking up, and it's been great seeing that. And Justin Jackson plays for the NFL. I often make jokes and I say, okay, they're making political statements, but on their cleats, I don't see free Assange and imperialism and poverty, because there's only certain things they can kind of talk against and rage against. Yeah. And what he's been raging against, you better believe you're going to see something. I'm telling you right now, as a sports fan, they're going to target Justin Jackson, and they're going to try to silence him and shut him up. Watch that. So.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. He the first time I saw him actually was when he was tweeting about Neera Tanden and her shit takes on Libya, and I'm like, oh, this guy's for real. He's lit. He's lit. So I'm like, yeah, they'll come after all of us in due time. You just give it some time and it'll happen.
Yeah, and hopefully he'll get traded to the Jets. Yeah. Sorry.
Jackson, thank you so much for coming on with us. We really appreciate it. Thanks for the good conversation, and stay safe and keep doing your thing, man. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank
good
you,
work.
guys.
Stop flipping off cops, okay?
See you guys. Thank you.
Later, buddy.
Bye.